The next moral philosophy is virtue ethics. Okay, so virtue ethics argues that ethical behavior involves not only adhering to conventional moral standards, but also considering what a mature person with a good moral character would deem appropriate in a given situation. Okay, you can say that there is we can have a benchmark. We can have a benchmark to consider whether an act is ethical or not. Okay, so if you have a benchmark, if you have a standard, for example, okay, of a good person, a good person will have certain characteristics, and when you are faced with an ethical dilemma, you will think, if that person is in your shoes, would that person do that? Will that good person do it or not? Then that will be basis of your ethical decision. Okay, so you will have one person as a benchmark, and one person as yeah um, as a standard. Okay, so good corporate ethic programs encourage individual virtue and integrity. So the implication of virtue ethics is that if we perform good uh, corporate program ethic programs, then individuals will be inculcated with good virtue and integrity, and when they have the virtues, then they will set the tone in terms of what is ethically correct or not. By the employees' role in the community organization or in organization, these virtues form a good person. An individual's ultimate purpose is to serve society's demands and the public good and be rewarded in their career. The well-being of the community goes hand in hand with individual excellence. Okay, so with virtue ethics, it strives to have ethical decision making by creating or inculcating good virtues in the individuals. So when they have good virtues, then the ethical decision making will follow that person as a standard. And the last moral philosophy is justice. Okay, so fair treatment and due reward in accordance with ethical or legal standards, including the disposition to deal with perceived injustices of others. Okay, so in the justice philosophy, and ethics will require fair treatment, due reward, with in accordance with ethical and legal standards. You have the distributive justice, where it is based on the evaluation of the outcomes on or results of a business relationship. When two businesses interact, do both of them get fair treatment? Do both of them get the due reward based on their actions? Okay, so if one is a seller, one is the buyer, are both of them getting fair treatment? If only one is getting fair treatment and the other is not getting fair treatment, therefore there is no justice there, and therefore that act is not ethical. And then the second justice is procedural justice. It considers the processes and activities that produce a particular outcome. So it looks at and not so much regarding with the results, but rather on the process itself. Okay, is the process having fair treatment? The activities is giving due reward. And then you have the interactional justice. It is based on the relationship between organizational members, including the way employees and management treat one another. Okay, so it's about the interaction within the organizational member. So in between employees and management, if one action that is being determined whether it's ethical or not, does it have fair treatment on both parties in the organization? Both the employees and management are both fairly treated, are both giving the due reward for their actions. If it is, then that is considered as being justice and therefore ethical. Okay, so understanding all those philosophies, the next step is to apply moral philosophy to ethical decision making. So we realize that individuals have different moral philosophies depending on whether they are making a personal or work related decisions. So but when individuals are in a working environment, their goals and pressure will differ, um, may differ with their professional lives. So their personal and professional lives, it will be different. Factors that make up a person's moral philosophy are weighted differently in a business situation. Factors that make up a person's moral philosophy are weighted differently in a business situation. So it means that even though in a person's personal life, his judgment, his acts will be according to his moral philosophy, but when he is making decision on behalf of his organization, then the weightage of his moral philosophy may not be as strongly as would be if he is making his decision for his own purposes. Okay, so a lot of the decision making in terms of ethical decisions is related to corporate culture. So corporate culture has an influence, and definitely individual morals is not the only factor when organizations make decisions. The concept of moral philosophy is inexact and must be assessed on a continuum rather than as a static entities. Okay, we've seen that there are many views regarding moral philosophy, and therefore it is very difficult. It is not an objective thing, and there's no totally right way. There's no totally wrong way based on the theories that we've seen, and therefore it must be assessed on a continuum rather than a static entities. Problems arise when employees encounter ethical situations they cannot resolve. Okay, so if they encounter ethical situations and their moral philosophies are insufficient to help them resolve the ethical situation, then problems may arise. Sometimes the company makes questionable decisions from the perspective of individual workers' values and moral philosophies, and this happens. A person who is given the responsibility to accomplish certain tasks, but then he realized in the context, people are uh, not undertaking that task properly because of some incentives given by the company. Uh, so even the bosses sometimes they ask the workers to skip on certain procedures in order to achieve something else, to achieve to maximize sales. But in order to maximize sales, they are instructed to do false marketing, for example. Okay, so it goes against the person's own morals, but then the company is instructing them to do it. So there will be clashes um, of decision stance there.